Hi guys, yes, Richard's just chucked this one over my way. Why was the Scarecrow given an award? Because he was judged to be outstanding in his field. Shall we? Yeah, I think we'd better, hadn't we? Okay guys, in this video I want to do a final cover off of colour correction regions inside of raw therapy. Yeah, it's been a long one, hasn't it? But I just want to tie up some loose ends and also show you one or two other little bits and bobs which will help you get the most out of this tool. And to be quite honest with you, I actually feel this tool should be put somewhere else inside raw therapy, as opposed to under colour toning. But, you know, I mean, all the other operations that we can do inside colour toning, these are these here, they're all exactly, pretty much, what it says on the tin. Whereas these colour correction regions are a lot more versatile and a lot more useful, as I'm sure you've already started to guess and seen from the previous two videos I've put up over the last couple of weeks. So before we dive on in, because I'm going to do a couple of images, and in the first video all we did was use colour toning and a lab adjustment or two, and then we used the L channel equalizer to create a mask, didn't we? Yes, on the old mill building. And we did pretty much the same thing in last week's video, which link up here. And the only difference there was we started to play around with these sliders here as well. Now, I did answer a question for one of my YouTube viewers the other day, because he'd been trying to emulate what I'd done on last week's video on a particular picture of his, and it wouldn't work simply because he was going about it the wrong way. So what I want to try and do is to sort of get you into analysing what this tool can do for you. And the simplest way to do that is start off with this image here. As you can see, it's red to black, green to black, and blue to black. Right, so we've got our three basic additive colour channels, red, green and blue. And as you can see, if I hold the cursor over the top and then look down here in the info panel, okay, so we're at red 255, green 255, how that red one's got in there, I don't know, and blue is 255. Now, we've used the L, or lightness equalizer, in the previous two videos. Now, the only thing is that creating a mask inside the L equalizer, or luminance equalizer, it's just looking at the grey luminance of your image. Now then, here's the thing. You think to yourself, well, how do I visualise what this equalizer is actually separating out, and what values is it working on? In other words, how does it relate to my image? Well, it's dead easy. If we come over to the exposure tab, you might think very simply of going to saturation and turning it all the way down. And so now we've got a grayscale image. Not. No. I've mentioned before to you that using some of the sliders in this particular panel, you're actually doing RGB alterations, which aren't really all that accurate, and they're a little bit undesirable, to be quite honest with you, for all the reasons I've mentioned in previous videos. Now, bring that saturation back. If we come to lab adjustments and activate lab adjustments, and I get the chromaticity, which don't forget is the colourfulness of the image, and I remove all the colourfulness from the image, in other words, I desaturate it, but use chromaticity instead. And there we go. Now you can see that red and green and blue have got different L values from their full 255 down to black. So these are the actual true luminosity values of the three channels, or the three colours. And if you think that's odd, if you're a Lightroom user, if I just hop over to Lightroom, here's that self-same image. Now, you want to remove it or turn it grayscale, the simplest thing to do will be to take the saturation slider and take it down to -100. And there you go, look at it. And then look at the L channel chromaticity removal result in Raw Therapee. It's the same. So these are the values of, or the grey values of those individual three colours, primary red, primary green, primary blue, on a black to white, if you like, grayscale, that this particular equalizer is looking at. So it's very good at picking out tones, but it's not very good at picking out colours. It's no good for colour work. It's good when you've got distinctly separate areas of tone in an image, and you can go and dial in on that one particular area with a great deal of ease and accuracy, I hasten to add. But if we are trying to get to colour and separate and isolate colour, it's a different kettle of fish altogether. So if I come back to the colour correction regions, if I go and say show mask, and I want to select the brightest 50% of the tones in this image, that is easy, because don't forget, selected equals yellow. Selected equals yellow equals top of the equalizer. Deselected means transparent. Deselected means transparent and bottom of the equalizer. Light tones are at the right hand side of the equalizer. Dark tones are at the left. So if I wanted to select the brightest 50%, I could sort of grab that down there, sort of say that's 50% of the way across, and then steepen that line off, and it's a little bit inaccurate. That's probably a little bit too far. Probably about there, and then sort of straighten it up. Okay, so in reality, you know what these three coloured bars are. Red, green, blue. But selecting the 50% of the brightest tones, colour-wise, all we've done is select what? Just over a third of red and just over half of green. We've got no blue selected. So using this L channel equalizer to try and select a particular colour or a particular hue, if you like, is not very accurate at all. How do we separate and select just the blues? Really easy. We don't want this L equalizer. So we'll re-zero the mask there. I'm just going to turn the mask off temporarily. Could we come to chrominance? No, because all that is going to do, if we select the most colourful colours in the image, or the top 50% most colourful colours in the image, that would be something like that. And if we show mask, ta-da, we're selecting 3/4 of the red, 3/4 of the green, 3/4 of the blue. Pretty much equal. Not quite, but pretty much. So again, we can't isolate colour with chrominance or in the chrominance equalizer. So we'll re-zero that. So how can I select just that blue colour? Really, really simple. Switch over to hue, and then you can see blue is here. I'm just going to put another point in there by hovering over that top edge of the equalizer and clicking. That drops another point in. And all I'm going to do is drop another point in there as well. I'm just going to pull this point down, right down to the bottom, so it's not selected. I'm going to pull this point down to the bottom, so that's not selected. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm creating a peak over on the right hand side of the equalizer. What we can now do is go show mask, and you can see what we've got selected. We've got no red, virtually no green, got a bit of dark green selected, and you can see we're starting to develop a selection, because it's going yellow, of the entire blue bar in this image. So now it's just a question of playing around with the curve. So I'm just going to grab this point and I'm going to move it in rather like that. Now you can see I've actually now got no yellow in either the red bar or the green bar. But what I need to do is I need to expand over towards more blue. I want more blue, yes I do. And now you can see that I've now selected all of that blue bar. So it is really easy to select colours in this hue equalizer. All you've got to do is identify where the colours you want to select for a particular operation. All you've got to do is ascertain where they lie within the equalizer. Theoretically, these coloured vertical lines should give you a clue, but I just find them a little bit inaccurate, for want of a better description. We're going to start off with this puffin image. Now, this puffin image is a little bit on the underexposed side, and we've got a few problems with black clogging here. So I'm just going to do something over in the exposure tab, and I'm just going to compress the highlights a bit, rather like that, maybe down to 69. I'm then going to come over to the colour tab, go and turn on colour toning in colour correction regions. Really easy. Now remember, as I told you and showed you in last week's video, that if I do not add any values in here or down here, and I just use these 4 sliders, that affects the entire image. So remember we looked at the slope slider last week? That's tantamount to exposure compensation. So let's take the slope up, and that will make the image go brighter. Let's take it up a little bit more, and I think that'll just about do, will it? Let's just take it up a wee smidgen more. Yes, rather like that. And then what I'm going to do is just drop the power a little bit, and I'll show you why. I'll take it up to 100%, and I just want to take out just a little bit of extra contrast. So I'm going to facilitate that by moving the power slider down just a little bit. And now you can see that's brightened the image up, but it's opened up those clogged black areas. So what are we going to do now? Let's come out to a fit to screen view, and I'm going to show you a use now for this, which is the colourfulness or chromaticity equalizer. If I get the point selector, for want of a better description, and I bring it over and I hover inside the background, notice where the vertical line is in the actual equalizer itself. Don't forget, this is the colourfulness or chromaticity equalizer. That background isn't very colourful, is it? So you expect it to drop a point quite hard over towards the left-hand side of the equalizer, because the left-hand side of the equalizer is the zero colourfulness. In other words, black and white. Over to the right-hand side of the equalizer, it's really simple. It's very colourful, yes. So in other words, if you think of colourfulness, chromaticity, as saturation, all your undersaturated colours are on the left-hand side of the equalizer, all your saturated colours are on the right-hand side of the equalizer. Get it? It's really simple. Now this is very good for selecting saturated colours. It's no good for selecting parts of the image that are dependent on luminosity. So I can't really go and use this chromaticity or colourfulness equalizer to generate a mask which features the white parts of the bird. I can't, not really. This is for selecting colourfulness. So what areas of colourfulness do I want? What I want to do is I want to increase the contrast between the subject and its background without using a contrast slider, because all a contrast slider will do is increase black to white contrast, which is not really what we want to do, because we can have saturation contrast, which is a lot more believable and it's more natural. So what we want to do is deselect from this area mask. Don't forget, we're not seeing the mask because I've got it invisible at the minute. But what I want to do is I want to remove all the undersaturated colours. So that's going to be a really, really simple exercise. But of course, I don't want to do it on this layer here, because don't forget, we've already made a slope change. So what I really need to do is go and add a new task, if you like, a new task, a new mask, a new layer, if you like, to this image. And so you can see now all the slider controls are back to 0. And really simply, all I'm going to do is remove the undersaturated colours from the mask and then increase the number of saturated colours which are going to be kept in the mask. And to visualise the mask, we'll go and click Show Mask. And then what do we need to do? I just need to move this point to the left, because some of the darker areas of the highly coloured part of the beak are not included in the mask because they're not yellow. So what I've got to do is I've just got to include a few more of the darker colours, and you can start to see them building in now, rather like that. And then I might just go and add a little bit of mask blur, and then maybe just bring this top point just a little bit closer over there. So we're steepening that curve off again, and you can see what we've got selected because it's all showing up yellow. And if we do add a little bit of mask blur, I've got that up at 4.8, and I'm just seeing under here a little tiny bit of feathered yellow. So I'm just going to pull that back from 4.8 probably down to about 2.5, 2.6. And now that little feathered area you can see is gone. And don't forget, if you're a member of my Patreon channel, you will be able to download both of the raw files that you're going to see me working on, this one included. So if you're following along with me, make sure you just carefully adjust this equalizer curve so you get a result looking something like that. So all we're going to do now is turn off Show Mask, and then to that masked area, all I'm going to do is turn up the saturation. And now you can see the saturation's gone up. I'm also going to turn up the slope and just make it a bit brighter. Then I think it's gone a little bit on the warm side. Let's just have a look. It's a little bit on the glary side, but I don't really want to turn the saturation down. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of blue correction, just like that. Okay, how sexy does that look? And if we go back to a fit to screen view, and I just go and reload the old mybase.pp3, that was our starting point, and there's our end point. Now what we could do is go back to the exposure tab, turn on lab, maybe just add a couple of points of lab contrast, rather like that. Just a little bit. Maybe turn the lightness down a smidge, and then go back in here and add a little bit more highlight compression. That's just started to bring the breast feathers back in, and then I might just go and add a little bit of highlight reconstruction, put that in maybe colour propagation or luminance recovery. Yeah, either one does the trick, but I'm fairly certain you'll agree we've made a massive difference to that image. So now I'm going to switch over to this. I can't remember the Latin name of them, but this is a four-spotted chaser dragonfly, and what a magnificent beastie he is. Commonly referred to in the dragonfly trade as a quad. Bet you didn't know there was such a thing as a dragonfly trade, did you? There isn't, not really. It's just people who like dragonflies refer to them as quads. And this is actually a freshly emerged quad dragonfly. This sort of white strand you can see here is one of the, oh God, I can't remember the name of these things either, but they're like thread-like tubes that join the developing dragonfly to what you call the exuvia, which is the old nymph case. And when they break out, they've got these strands hanging off them everywhere. And as the dragonfly dries out, these strands shrivel up. And as soon as they start flying, they just break apart and fall away. Fascinating things. But you haven't come here for a zoology lesson, have you? So, not that I'm qualified to give you a zoology lesson on dragonflies, but, well, there you go. What I want to do with this image is, you see, because you've always got to decide what you want to do with an image before you start to do it. You need a roadmap in your head of where you're going. And so, what is it I want to do? Again, it's this contrast thing. And the entire background is nicely out of focus, nice bokeh, but it's green. And it is a saturated green, and its degree of saturation is pretty much equal to the degree of saturation of the quad dragonfly. And so the background, to me, is competing for the viewer's attention by being as equally eye-catching in saturation level as the subject. So, how do we approach this wee problem? I'm going to blow the image up to 100% again. You'll notice I've got a couple of little areas of slight clipping in the colour, or clipping in the highlight. So I'm just going again to add a little bit of highlight compression, maybe 105, and then because you can see that area's gone a little bit dead, and this area's going a bit dead here, we'll go and add a little bit of highlight reconstruction, and we will actually put that in colour propagation. And there we go, job sorted. Maybe just drop the highlight compression a little bit, back down to about 80, 85, and that will do. So, what is it I'm after? I want to leave the subject pretty much as it is, at least for now. What I want to do is I want to push that background further away. I want to make it less attractive to the viewer's eye, less competitive with the subject, therefore increasing the saturation contrast between the subject and its background. And where do you hear this talked about very often? You don't, do you? But we'll come over to colour toning, turn on colour toning, not turn it off. And we'll come to colour correction regions, as is our want. And what do we need to do in order to select that background? Because a lot of people would think, well, I could take this into Photoshop or whatever and do a selection around it and just in the select. No. Waste of time and nowhere near as fine a result as what we're going to get from doing this. So I need to select this colour, the background. So I need to turn on the hue equalizer. I'm just going to gather a point selector, come over into the background, and now I can see where my background is. In this particular location, it's just slightly to the right of 50-50. If I come up here, it's still in the same place. If I come over here, it's still in the same place. If I come down here, it's still in the same place. So really and truly, the hue, you can see that vertical bar moving a little bit, but not much. So I'm just going to Control click to mark that rough approximate colour or hue of this background. And all I'm going to do is just going to add another point to it because I want to keep a range of greens selected and I want to deselect everything else. So we're going to pull down there. We're going to pull down on this blue point as well to try and remove as much colour from that mask as possible, but leave the greens. Now, it's a natural green, so there will be a certain amount of yellow component to it. So we'll go Show Mask, and as you can see, the only bits of the image which are not selected, in other words, the transparent areas, don't forget it's back to front to Photoshop, is the dragonfly. Yeah, so if I start to remove yellows, now you can see a little bit more of the dragonfly has become visible. If I move the selected greens and make them span more, see, we're just getting a little bit of subtle improvement. And if I come over to there, now you can really start to see I'm deselecting this here dragonfly. Let's just bring this point in to make the selection a little bit cleaner. Oops, we had a little bit of an error there. Maybe select more green. Maybe select a little bit less yellow by coming to this top point and moving it to the right. That didn't work very well, did it? And just come and click down here to add another point, rather like that. And you can see where we're going. So you just sort of have to play around with the curves, but I've already done one, so I'm just going to load it. And let's go for colour. No, I'll go colour range 2. I think that's the one. And there we go. So now you can see I've got a lot of the perch of the dragonfly and the dragonfly visible, but I've not really got enough of the background selected. So I'm just going to select a few more greens and go and include a few more yellows. There we go. Just play around with that curve a little bit, and that will just about do for our purposes. An unchecked show mask, so now we've hidden the mask. Alrighty, and what are we now going to do? We're now going to turn down the saturation of that green background. How cool is that? We could even make that background go a little bit darker by taking the slope value to the left, in other words, less than 1. And you can see straight away we've now got a lot more contrast between the dragonfly and its background. The dragonfly pops out from its background more, and all we've done is remove saturation and a little bit of lightness from said background. We've actually taken out a little bit too much for my taste. I quite like the slight darkening of the background, but we'll just bring back a little bit of that background saturation and probably keep it at about -40, -41. And we'll come out to a fit to screen view. There's our before shot. There's our after shot. Yes, it's quite cool, isn't it? So what else could we do? Let's go one stage further and let's see if we can just thump up the yellows and the oranges of the actual dragonfly itself. We could add another layer in inverted commas and then come to hue again, the hue equalizer, and all I now want to do is in this hue equalizer I'll just want to select the dragonfly. So let's go show mask, and I want to just see yellows and reds. All right, And so what we're going to do is drag all the other colours down to the bottom. Whoops-a-daisy, come here. And then maybe go and put another point in there and drag that up to the top. And let's see what that mask looks like. Shall we go and select a few more reds? I think so. Shall we go and select a few more of the yellows? Yes, I think so. And I'm sort of going to leave it like that. You can have a play around either on this image if you're a Patreon member, or on some of your own images. All depends on what it is you want to do or what you want to select. I'm just going to go for a few more of those yellows. Need to drop that point in again. Come on. There we go. I'm quite liking that. Just for a little subtle change. So we'll turn off the mask. By actual fact, what we'll do is we'll add a little bit of blur to that mask. And then we'll go and hide the mask. And then all we'll do is just go and up the saturation of the dragonfly. And if I go into a 1-to-1 view and I bring that back to 0, there is our secondary adjustment turned off. There's our secondary adjustment turned on. And so the deeper yellows and the yellowy oranges, those are the colours I was chasing after. We've actually increased the saturation. Maybe we want to just go and increase the brightness or lightness a little bit. So we'll go and adjust the slope upwards, just a smidge, rather like that. And I think that is looking super duper. And if I turn these adjustments off and then I turn them back on again, you can see we've made a huge difference to the image. We haven't made such a great deal of change to the dragonfly. What changes we have made have been beneficial. Just going to pull that saturation down a tiny tad. 14-15 is plenty. And if we come out to a fit to screen view, there is our completed image with plenty of separation between the background and our subject. Yet we haven't made a single contrast adjustment that you're familiar with. We haven't changed the black to white contrast or the grayscale contrast. All we've done is change the perceived contrast of saturation in that image. Okay guys, I really hope that's proved useful to you. If it has, don't forget, give this video a thumbs up, leave a nice comment in the comment section below. If you're not already subscribed, go click the subscribe button, click the ringety-tingety bell and do the ringety-tingety bell thing to get a notification of next time I put a video up. And if you've enjoyed this video, you want to get hold of more exclusive content which I have over on my members site. I think there's 90 odd members exclusive posts over on there at the moment. And just click the link on this end screen or in the video description box below and go and have a look and see if you fancy joining up. Because I need the brass, because I'm poor, yes. Alright guys and girls, as I said before, hope you've enjoyed that, hope you found it useful. And until then, next time, see ya, be good, stay safe, stay well, and keep taking the pictures. Tooroo. Okay, so you've just seen me trying to work a mask out with this hue equalizer curve, and I was doing a lot of faffing about, as you saw. And I'll just give you a quick tip. To make these curves a little less faffy to work with, what you can do is temporarily hover just over this boundary between the actual tool panel and the image pane, and you'll see you get a double-headed arrow. Hold down your left mouse button and just drag to make everything go massively big. You see, you can't do that. You can sort of do it in the likes of Lightroom, but they are you just can't make it this big. So of course, when it's this big, you can now really start to dial things in just the way you want them. And we're having a much easier time for making this mask by pulling out this panel very big. And there's another bit of a bonus for you. When you've actually carefully crafted this wonderful curve, what you can actually do, and I have shown you this in a previous video, I think it was on the HSV equalizer, you can come down to this little icon here, see the tooltip, save current curve. You can click that and save the current curve. And I have this little folder here called Curves RTC. RTC is the standard file extension for a curves file in Rule Therapee, which I take it stands for Rule Therapee Curve. You never know. And all you need to do is just give that curve a name, rather like that there, and just click Save. And then what you can go and do is pull that back into any other equalizer inside of Rule Therapee, wherever you might find one, including, obviously, this one. So you can actually save yourself quite a bit of time working with curves by actually saving those that you'll commonly use. Alrighty. Hope that's proved interesting for you guys. Why I didn't show you this in the main video, God only knows, but there you go. So until the next time, guys, cheers.